Hey guys, welcome back. I'm top music attorney, Miss Krystle, and I love seeing you guys in the chat. We got some questions already. I see there's a question about the online course for record labels. I'm gonna answer that. But first, let's just kind of recap. The holidays are upon us, like you said, Joel. And how was your guys' Halloween? What did you do? I didn't do much of anything this year. I'm gonna be totally honest about that. Not that I'm necessarily the person that has to go out and do stuff, especially on Halloween, but it is one of my favorite holidays. So, kind of what I'm planning to make up for it is that just means I have to go extra hard next year on the costume planning, on the photo shoots, parties, whatever it is that it all entails. And so, something I'm going to be doing for the next year is basically making notes of good costume ideas. Because when it comes to clothing, it is always the last thing that I always think about when it comes to music videos and live shows and things that I do as an artist. And so when it comes to like costumes for Halloween, that is certainly the same case. So I was looking at what's something creative, right? I still want to do something that's on the nose. I'm like, I should do, not poison ivy, right? I'd love to do poison ivy. I'm not gonna, but I go like maybe Wendy, right? From the food chain. I could be like a sociopathic, homicidal Wendy. Or Ronald McDonald, that would be interesting. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know. Halloween was cool, stayed home and watched movies with the fam. Spent Halloween learning about publishing. There you go. I like to hear that. Yeah, no, I'm just working. That's all I do through holidays. It's like my head is floating on a black sweater. Thank you. I appreciate you. Looking good. So, let me give you kind of an outline of what we're going to do today. We're going to cover a lot. So I'm going to give you guys kind of this fun little story of some chaos that's been happening in my life. But on the record label question, I actually am going to drop you a little information about something that is coming related to not only the full-length course, but it's actually going to be something that's free. We're going to get into our music business segment, and I'm going to give you guys the 5 worst mistakes that artists make and how you can avoid them. We'll get into a couple of your community questions. And of course, we have our music business news segment of what's going on. I think today we have a story on Chris Brown. I thought this one was pretty interesting. So to kind of kick it off, I thought I would just share, I went on this whole water filter kick. I think it was mid to end of 2020. And I just was not feeling so great. And I just go, I wonder if it's the water that, I'm drinking. And I go, I've never tested the quality of the water. I was just using like this filter in the fridge, right? So, one that you just get for like 50 or 60 bucks. And you always assume that if you're going to spend money on a filter, it's filtering out bad stuff that just shouldn't be drinking and, you're all right. So anyway, I actually did a video. I think I posted it on my Instagram, which is Miss Krystle Live. And so my video, I basically was doing a water test. And so I got like 5 different types of water. I had my tap water, I had the fridge water, and then I got different types of bottled water. And so I showed you guys based on this measuring tool or instrument that I'd gotten off of Amazon. And I go down the line, I'm like, this is the number that comes up, this is what it means. And I was pretty horrified that when it came to not only one of the bottled waters, which was coming up as like, close to tap water in clarity and purity. But also the fridge water that I was drinking was even worse than that. And so that was pretty, horrifying. I'm like, oh geez, so this actually must be the reason I'm not feeling good. So fast forward, I'm going to invest in a really nice water filter. And it was this Berkey filter that you can get. It's Berkey. And it sits on top of your sink, right? And then you just kind of pour the water in the top segment, and then there are filters that it goes through and it drops down into the lower portion. I loved it because it's stainless steel. I don't want any plastic. So I bought this thing and it had pretty good reviews. And, so I've been using it now for I think about 6 months. And I started noticing kind of a weird fishy smell in the water. And I would notice there's kind of like this white sand in it. I'm like, what is going on? And so, of course, turns out the filters that I had purchased were defective. And it went through this whole headache of getting, a claim reported, and then I still had to pay to get new filters, even though it was discounted. That's all fine. At least we figured it out, right? Well, there's these fluoride attachments that you can get, and the fluoride, of course, fluoride's not good for you. It makes you, well, lots of people like to say it makes you dumb and it helps the government control you, but it's not good for you in general. And so you get the fluoride filters. So anyway, we replace the first set of filters. They're black. You replace the black filters, and then I'm drinking the water again a couple days ago. I'm like, God, this really tastes like fish. Tastes like fish. I'm getting that sand in the bottom segment again. And so I go through and I detach these things, and I'm looking on the inside, and you can see that there's black. And I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if maybe that's the color that they're supposed to be on the inside, but it doesn't look like nothing. And one in particular looks like it's kind of getting overgrown. So I'm getting pretty grossed out at this point. So I contact Berkey again. Hey, this is kind of what's going on. Da, 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 da. And I go, I thought it was the black filters. Guess it's not. And so I go through this whole, literally like all day yesterday. Okay? I'm a really busy lady. I have a law firm. I have a music career. I have teams that I manage. But obviously when it comes to just the quality of the water I'm drinking, I want to make sure I'm not, drinking black sludge. So I'm going back and forth all day long. It's incredibly frustrating because they're like, well, did you do this? Did you do that? And just making sure that obviously I didn't cause whatever the problem is. And so finally, after all of this, sending videos and pictures and explanations and signing, the document in blood, the customer service rep comes back today and she goes, yeah, so, after you had taken them off from, having the other filters be broken, you should have put them in the fridge because you didn't put them in the fridge. It's your fault. We're not going to replace them. Okay. Well, the day before they had said, yeah, that's clearly mold. I'm like, all right, so if these filters had been off for like 3 days, you're telling me that this massive growth of mold in both of these that I've been tasting now for actually several months is because of my fault. My bad. Didn't put it in the fridge. So you can imagine that I was pretty frustrated. And I just go, look, I've been communicating about this fish taste and this sand that I'm drinking every day. Probably not great for me. What are you going to do about it? And, they're like, well, we're not going to refund you or replace them, but we'll give you a discount so you can buy it again. So the point of all of this, other than test your water, know what you're drinking, is sometimes you gotta pick your battles. Because in this instance, I kind of want to go nuclear. And a nuclear option for an attorney is to get real wild and you are escalating issues. And for this kind of scenario, for me, it's a pretty significant thing. If you're telling me that there's mold in my units, and lo and behold, after I had removed the white units, I wasn't tasting that fish smell or tasting the fish taste anymore or getting in the sand. And so, of course, I don't think it had anything to do with maybe my mishandling in the last couple of days. But when it comes to these filters, which are like $60, sometimes you got to just kind of let it go. Now, what I can do, obviously, is exercise my freedom of speech, First Amendment right, to say I am definitely not a fan of Berkey customer service. I probably am never going to buy anything from them again. I'm probably going to invest in a whole new system just because of this. I mean, the first go-around with, the first defective filters was no good, but really the second defective filters, they were already defective. And that's the bottom line. So it's been a pretty, horrific experience going from basically drinking tap water from a crappy fridge filter to then drinking basically what they're telling me is mold. So there's that. Now that I'm done with my rant, I have an exciting update for you guys in the realm of record label opportunities and free information. So you guys know we have a full-length course that's dedicated to taking you through the process of building your record label. And this is everything from the contracts that you need to, over 4 hours of videos where I'm explaining to you all the stuff of getting yourself set up, registering the music, getting your copyrights, getting your trademarks, setting up your formal business. So that's kind of the full-length chunk of change record label course. But what I wanted to do was also provide you guys a free option. You know me, I just released a course that's free, teaching you all about contracts. I want to provide both the full experience as well as the free stuff whenever I can. So what we're going to be rolling out is this free crash course for record label owners. And so it's going to be basically like when a client hires me and says, I just started my label, or I've had my label for a little while and I don't know where to go from here. And then I take them through, this is everything you need to think about. I'm basically just giving it to you 101. Here's everything I'm going to instill and plant seeds in the back of your mind, because the reality is, as you're growing your record label, it takes time. And you're going to be kind of taking it in these little steps. And so as you're going through these little steps, now you'll have this really important information in the back of your brains. So I'm super excited. This is also a video course. Like I said, it's free. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. We make a lot of the announcements on my social media pages, which is for the law firm stuff. It's through Redhead Attorney. So at Redhead Attorney. So make sure you're following on like Instagram, and then you can see when we're going to roll that out, but it should be in the next couple weeks at most. Now, I know someone had a question earlier just in regards to the full-length course. If you are interested in just getting the course and you're ready to kind of dive in, that's fine as well. You can go to topmusicattorney.com and get started. And that's also where you guys can get that free contracts course, where I teach you all the stuff that you need to know to be able to look at contracts, negotiate them, and do it like a pro, so you don't get taken advantage of. So lots of great stuff there. And of course, there'll be much more to come. All right, so in my community questions, I kind of want to get into this right now. So let's go through. This is the segment where you guys will leave questions on different YouTube videos, email me, message me, and so I'll pick out a couple that will hit during these live streams. So the first one I have, someone's doing a lyric video for YouTube. Should I get a mechanical license? All right, so if you need to know about doing cover songs specifically, if you're doing a cover song, that's when you get what's called a mechanical license. And the mechanical license are super easy breezy to get. And quite frankly, if you go through DistroKid or some of these other DIY music distributors, you can get a mechanical license, which basically is the license to do a cover song. Very inexpensive, and it legally protects you so that when you do a cover song, you're good to go. You don't need to contact the artist, the publisher, the record label, and so copyright law makes it real nice in that way. So when it comes to doing a lyric video, if you're talking about a mechanical license, it would need to be for a cover song. So if you're doing a lyric video for that cover song, you would want to make sure you have the mechanical license as it relates to the music. Now, we've talked about this, and I have a full-length video on Top Music Attorney YouTube channel here, where I explain how cover songs work, the process, the legalities that you guys need to keep in mind. But when it comes to syncing it to an actual visual, right, so now you're making a YouTube video, you are technically supposed to get what's called a sync license. And that does require that you then get in touch with the rights holders, which are usually the publishers and the record label. But YouTube, in all its wisdom, and understanding that that's a near impossibility for most artists, they have created kind of this loophole to copyright law. And the way that it works is that record labels and publishers will register music that their artists have, basically created, that they own, and they will register it with YouTube. And they'll say, basically, these are the songs that we are monetizing. So if someone else uploads a song, we don't want an automatic, copyright strike on their video. We just want to monetize and make sure we're getting paid for all of those views. So you'll see that obviously there are a whole lot of cover songs that, get millions and millions of plays on YouTube, but they never get, copyright strikes taken down. And this is why. Because most of these songs now, it's better for everyone that you're getting the free promotion of someone doing a cover of your song. But then let's say the record label is getting paid for all your hard work. So that's kind of the loophole right now. The answer is you're supposed to get a sync license in order to sync your cover song to a visual. But, there's kind of this loophole that YouTube has created. All right, next question. How do I have to use a music attorney, or not how, there was no how there. Do I have to use a music attorney from my state, or can I hire someone across the country? When it comes to hiring an attorney, obviously having someone who's nearby is nice, because if you are doing in-person meetings and you have that kind of relationship with your attorney, then it gives you the ability to pop in and, that's never a bad thing. But when it comes to entertainment law, what I find is that a lot of my artists aren't in my state, right? So we're based in Arizona, and we have a large chunk of change of clients we represent in the state, but we also represent clients all over the United States. And so in kind of these hotspots, Nashville, LA, New York, we have a lot of clientele. And the reason we're able to do this is because the license that we have to practice in the state of Arizona gives prohibition on practicing outside of the state only as it relates to court stuff. Okay, so just meaning lawsuits. So if you call me and you're in New York and you want to sue someone, then I'm gonna say, I'm not licensed in New York, sorry, I can't help you. But when it comes to what's called transactional work, so it's stuff like contracts, I'm doing trademarks and copyrights, I'm doing negotiations for you, building templates for your company or for your career. That's transactional, so that's why entertainment attorneys often have clients all over the United States, which is certainly the case for me. All right, next up. What if someone created a logo that looks pretty similar to mine, but a different color? So this gets us into trademark discussions. So if you have a logo or a slogan or, obviously a word, so it might be your name as an artist, it might be your name as a music business, all of that is under trademark law, and you have a right to protect that. So when it comes to someone else having a logo that looks really similar to yours, you may have a claim. And we have a whole playlist on this YouTube channel dedicated to explaining trademarks, the process, why you need to get them, how you get them. So make sure you check that out if you want to do a little more of a deep dive. But when it comes to someone having something that's infringing your logo, your trademark, even if you don't have a formal registration, you still have what's called common law rights. Under common law rights, that means that if you've been using it for a period and then someone else pops up and they basically rip you off, you have a right to enforce your trademark. But what I say to a lot of clients is I go, don't try messing in the common law area of having to prove this and prove that. Go get your trademark. Once you have that piece of paper that says that you are officially the trademark owner, it makes everything so much easier, because now I can go file a copyright takedown notice and a trademark takedown notice, I should say. Either way, taking down that intellectual property becomes so much easier once you have the actual registration. So go get it. All right, let's do one more. How about, how easy is it to switch from ASCAP to BMI? So ASCAP and BMI, these are what are called performance rights organizations. They are the companies, the two biggest companies in the United States that collects for public performances. So I'm doing a show, someone's performing my music in a bar via, the radio, or I would say a CD player. Who has CD players anymore? But basically, the public performance of the music, you get paid. So that's why you register with one of these organizations as an artist, as a publisher, to make sure that you are collecting that revenue. So as far as migrating, it's basically just that administrative step. You just have to be organized. As you're registering, you got to know the stuff. You got to know, the length of the song, the title, the composers, if one of the other composers is registered on a different organization's website, what their numbers are. So I wouldn't say any of this stuff is ever easy, which is why a lot of artists don't do it. But if you need to make the switch for any reason, you can. You just need to take the time to kind of inventory your songs and be ready when it comes time to make that switch. Okay, so guys, before we get into the news segment, I wanted to go over my music business tip segment for artists today. Okay, just taking a quick look here before I get into this. So nice to see all you guys. Yes. Oh, you're in New York. Very nice. All right. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I want to go through the 5 worst mistakes that artists make. And I'm going to kind of go in reverse order on this. There are a lot, but these were the ones that really stood out to me because you guys know, as a practicing attorney, these are things that I see day in and day out, and they're mistakes that are very common, but they could be avoided. So I want to mention it so you can keep it in the back of your minds and you can avoid a lot of these common pitfalls, and it will just save you some headache and time and pain. So number 5 on my 5 worst mistakes that artists make artists give away ownership of their music. Now, you've heard me talk about this before. When it comes to signing, let's say, with record labels, that's usually part of the deal. If you sign with a label, the label's going to own your music. And they're going to own the music forever. Most times, you don't even have a right to try to purchase back your masters. And that is something that you need to you decide whether it's worth it for you. I will never villainize record labels. I represent record labels, and sometimes the record label does a really good job for the artist to help to connect them with good producers, to help get them on tours, and to really propel their career to that next level. But you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the one little, piece of caution that I always offer to my artists. I just say, if you are going to sign away your music, which is like your baby, it's your legacy, and you never know what song is going to hit, understand that you are making a bet on the label, and vice versa. The label's betting on you, because if the label's going to invest time and resources and money, well, hopefully it pays off for the label, right? And the label can recoup. But the big part of this, the mistake that I see, is that artists are very eager to give away ownership for nothing. And it usually is just something like this. Brand new record label pops up, sets up a nice, website, has a new Instagram account, and reaches out to an artist and says, hey, I want to sign you. Let's do like a 3-album deal. I want 2 options, but, I don't really have, funds to give you a signing bonus, so there's no upfront payment. And then you ask, all right, well, tell me a little bit about like your company and the other artists that you've represented. And sometimes they don't have that roster built yet. So with a brand new label, it kind of goes both ways. The label has to take a chance and start signing artists because you're waiting to build your roster. But on the flip side, you don't necessarily want to be that guinea pig, right? So as the artist, you don't want to say, yeah, sign me up. Let's just see how this goes. If there's nothing that the label, or more importantly, the label head can say to convince you. So, the way I kind of put it is just remember, you're betting on someone. It's usually either the label head or label representative that's reached out and said, hey, I want to sign you. I think your music's cool. And that's all great. But you need to have meaningful conversations about how it's going to work. You guys are going to be business partners. And so you need to say, all right, this is what I'm going to do as the artist. I'm going to post regularly. I'm going to take the marketing seriously. I'm going to pump out music. I'm going to write all day long. But then, let's hear what the record label has to say. And if, in the instance, and I've heard this as well, in the instance that the label doesn't have anything to say, and there hasn't been more than one conversation, I don't understand why you as the artist are so eager to run to sign that contract. Because you're putting yourself in a really bad position of just going into this room that has no lights, you don't know anything that's in there, and you're just going to walk through because someone said there's something great waiting for you in there. There might not be, and often there isn't. All right, so number 4 on the worst mistakes that artists make. Artists have a tendency of posturing and lying about stuff. Okay, so as an artist, I think that there's a tendency to fake it till you make it, but do it mindfully, okay? So don't be kind of, posing about your numbers and really you're like paying for fake plays, because at the end of the day, all that stuff kind of catches up to you. And don't lie either, right? So don't lie to try to get a gig. Don't lie about, shows that you haven't done. And I understand that there's something that's very attractive to doing that in the beginning of your career because you don't have a lot of things that you can point to. I get that. But you have to just remember that, especially in the music and entertainment business, what goes around comes around. And so many times people that you will meet in this industry will remember you. And so you'll be, connecting with them again later on down the road. And if, you got caught in a lie or they thought you were, being a little extra bolstering in what you were saying, that's not good. And I've seen this blow back in really bad ways. So, always just be transparent. Be your genuine self, and that will go so much further, especially in an industry where everyone thinks that everyone else is being fake and lying anyway. Number 3 on my worst mistakes that artists make, They don't act professional. You always have to be acting like you have already made it. Not in the instance that it's like, I'm posturing, I'm lying. No, it's in the, I take myself seriously as an artist. That's what I'm trying to get to. If you are a professional, insert whatever it is. If you are a singer, a rapper, you play guitar, you're a producer, you're a music business owner, then conduct yourself like that from the beginning. And that was something that was instilled in me at a very early age. And it helped me a lot. Because right away when I was like 16, I just was like, no, I'm super professional. We're going to do this the right way. We're going to have clear agreements. And, I think my mom probably instilled that in me, but it's a really good rule of thumb because it helps to set the standard of how other people are going to treat you, right? You're setting kind of the standard for yourself. So if you aren't acting super professional, if you're not communicating well, you're not responding to emails, then, that's probably what you can expect to receive in return. But also it just helps to set the expectation of what you can expect working with other people. Because sometimes when you're working with other people, you don't get professionalism. And so you'll find that you have to set kind of that standard for yourself, and then you'll figure out as you go along and you build your team what you're willing to put up with, basically. All right, number 2 on worst mistakes that artists make, they pick the wrong partner. Now, when I say partner, I mean this very broadly. Okay, so a partner could be something as simple as your mom. Whoever that person is who's by your side, who wants to see you succeed, make sure that as a long-term kind of play, you pay attention to that relationship, because sometimes we get just locked into these relationships early on for convenience, or because someone was there in the beginning for a while, but then maybe the relationship starts to deteriorate. And that person becomes someone that hampers your career and hampers your progress. And that could show itself in so many ways. Maybe someone now is just, causing issues, causing drama because they're kind of like a drama person. And while that was okay early in the relationship, now you are a professional, right? You conduct yourself in a good way. You're transparent. You're authentic. But then every time you go to a meeting, you got someone with you who's kind of running their mouth, and that's hurting your image. There are things like that come up, or maybe someone's being a little quick with the cash. Money's being spent. Money's not being accounted for. I mean, there's all kinds of issues that come up, and then there's literal partners where you guys decide to start your record label, or you decide to start your other music business venture together. And now you really are in the weeds. Who's doing the accounting? Who's having the meeting? Who's taking the meeting minutes? And so your life is going to get so much harder or so much easier based on who you decide is going to be your partner. And I say that just because, sometimes it's time to move on. Sometimes it's time to find someone who's a better fit. And so you always have to be doing kind of an audit of your own circle, because the people that you keep around you are either going to slow you down or they're going to help you with your momentum and to help you keep moving forward. All right, number 1 on my 5 worst mistakes that artists make, they don't have a strong team or attorney. Now, usually I would just position this and say they don't have an attorney, worst thing, and specifically an entertainment attorney. But in the meantime, sometimes if you can't get an attorney right away, it just means that you have your core team. And that might be 2 or 3 people. But what I'm talking about is your group that is there to protect you. Now, at the end of the day, really your team, your manager, your agent, your attorney, all of us are supposed to be working together to make sure that you're protected, you're able to make your art, and that you're not going to get yourself into a really bad deal. Now, the golden standard is you need to have an entertainment attorney as soon as any important contract comes up, period. Doesn't matter if you need to borrow some money. If you're going to do a deal and sign your name on a piece of paper, you're going to be tied to something for several years in most instances. It's worth going and getting an hour or 2 of an attorney's bill to pay to make sure that you are absolutely protected. But then also when it comes to the team that you make, this kind of goes back to that last tip. Make sure you build a powerhouse team around you, people who are efficient, people who are competent. Because every time someone trips, you guys got to help each other. But the more that your team is tripping, the more your team is slowing you down. So those are my 5 worst mistakes that artists make. It was kind of on my mind, so I hope you guys find that helpful. And then also, I did mention, if you go to topmusicattorney.com, you have that free course It's a free video course where I'm teaching you about contracts. So go through it. Learn about contracts, learn how to protect yourself, and I give you some of my best tips being a real life attorney that deals with this stuff every day. All right, let me just check these comments real quick. We're gonna bring in that Orko. We've missed his face. Here we go. Hi there. I'm just looking at these comments. I see someone saying, I'm having a hard time building my monthly listeners. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that is a real struggle for so many artists, and it's fair enough because right now Spotify is basically radio. If you can make something hit on Spotify, if you can get on a Spotify playlist, I mean, you're golden. And so, getting that traction, getting that engagement is so important. And so I say social media cultivation. That is the best place to start to get real fans. Don't do these ads through Spotify where they're like, it's not going to be the best value or use of your money, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to you got to use the Facebooks and the Instagrams to kind of bring people over, because even though a lot of people's reaches are getting choked, it's still your best way to get people to come over to another platform, as opposed to just natively being found on Spotify. I mean, they have to have a reason to go there, and that's the thing. When you're doing social media, you need to make sure that you are catering to the platform in which you're doing, right? So right now, we're streaming on YouTube. Normally we're streaming on Facebook, but that's down right now. But the point is, it's like YouTube serves you videos different than, like, say, like a Facebook would or like an Instagram would. And it's like, so you need things like Facebook and Instagram to help build things like your YouTube, to help build things like your Spotify's and your Pandora's, because that's the gate to kind of get.
But you need to be willing to go the distance, right? So what I mean by that is, if you release something and you're kind of newer in your career and you're getting 100, plays on something, and maybe even less than that, that's okay. Don't go and start buying fake plays. I just can't stress this enough, because what artists don't know is that will crush your algorithm. So meaning Spotify will say this person's paying for fake plays because they're all coming, like, surging from these unknown territories. And so it knows what you're doing and it punishes you. So next time you release it, it's not going to show your content to your followers, it won't push it out organically to anybody. And then it's going to take you like 6 months to recover from that with the algorithm. So it really is in the best bet, like that Orko said, work those other platforms, get that traction organically, and become a master marketer for your brand and your music. There is nothing more important than marketing the crap out of yourself.
Absolutely, and you can't be afraid to do that. And then also remember, in with the fake plays and why you wouldn't want to do it. Some people do it because maybe they want to get booked on shows. They want to have that hell vanity metrics thing of looking like you're bigger than you are, and you don't realize that there's ways to see that right away. Like if I was if I was a club owner or a booker, and you were trying to book a show with me, and you're like, look at my, I have 100,000 streams. Well, I probably have a way just to easily tell that where they all came from, and none of your streams come from, if I was in Dallas, from Dallas, like nobody's listening in Dallas. So, I would not necessarily book you. So it's just pointless. Yeah. Just pointless.
And actually here, one more question before we get to our news business stories. So, CJ saying, can two artists or one artist before signing and a label use the same attorney easily? No. When it comes to the artist and the label, it should not be the same attorney. It needs to be two different attorneys, two different law firms. They're not friends. They don't know each other, to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. When it's two artists, though, sometimes we will represent the same artist if it's the same deal, and that way they can kind of cut down how much they have to pay because we're reviewing the same thing. But, again, it just comes down to, is there a potential to be a conflict?
And then if I, like, let's say if that was the case for me, right? So I'd have to sign something waiving or acknowledging something, right? Like saying it's okay for you to work. If I did share the same attorney as the label, if I did decide that, I would have to sign something, right? Or they would, or something like that, because because of that conflict of interest, like you'd have to.
Yeah, you got it. It's called a conflict of interest waiver. And so sometimes there are situations that come up. And so, for example, I've literally had this happen. So I represent a client, and the other side, right? The person who is on the other side of the deal represented by a different attorney. Later on, that client comes and says, hey, you did such a good job on the case. I want to
Right.
hire you. And so in that instance, I still, even though it's a different matter, I still need to get consent from the other client just to be like, hey, you guys were on opposite ends. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So you get that waiver.
But you definitely recommend that if the label is recommending the label attorney for you, not to do that and just to get your own
Yeah.
attorney, right? Yeah.
Get your own attorney for sure. Do your research. You have your whole career to get the right person. So if the first attorney you hire doesn't work out and doesn't feel like a good fit, get someone else.
Very good. Is there anything else you wanted to cover in those comments?
You know what? Just one more. I see there's a question about a PR company. Is it better for marketing than online freelance marketers who may only have paid advertising? So, PR companies, for me, I am not a fan, and that's just because I've had such a bad experience for the PR companies I've reached out to. They're all very much, hey, you're doing flat fees. We're going to get $2,000 a month for 3 months minimum. And then, they don't make any specific representations about what they can do. They're like, we'll try to insert, get you into major publications, but they never have actual relationships. They don't really have an ability to do it meaningfully. So what I find that's best is that you build your own marketing team. So hire freelancers. Hire someone that you can just pay hourly and be like, hey, put together a press release. I need you to submit it to all these different publications in our area or that are nationwide. That is a way better use of your money. And then you are specifically getting people who work with you, who are going to have that personal relationship with you, and they'll care more than the PR company in most instances.
And this is such an interesting topic. Going through this together and going through the journey of working with PR companies, have decided to do things on our own, and build our own kind of PR company kind of things. It's interesting because you it's a tough job because let's say these PR companies are pitching you to different blogs and different playlists and stuff. You still have to be right for those playlists. Just because they have those relationships, you still have to be right for these things. And a lot of times what I find that PR companies do, they go, yeah, we can absolutely guarantee, if they're saying they can guarantee you placements for something, they're guaranteeing you placements on blogs that their team has created and worked. So they're in-house blogs because they still have to produce something for you. But the point is, usually you're getting charged for, you're not really the reach that you're getting, the blog placements, the playlists that you're getting put on are not having an impact on your career at all. So
and
you know what I mean? The real guys will be able to do something for you if you're ready.
And I'll give you an extra pro tip even for me in my career, right? So my career, my different businesses that I own, I was working myself, right? I put together my own press releases. I was submitting them to local publications, national publications, and I'd get some stuff here and there. But for the amount of time and work that I put in just to get some kind of little blip in someone's publication, I realized later on that time, which is money, my time is money, that time would have been so much better spent and money just paying for like a Facebook ad, actually engaging with fans. Because at the end of the day, why are we trying to get publications?
And learning how to do it, just taking that time.
Exactly. Learning how to do it all and do it correctly. Because at the end of the day, all we're doing is we're trying to get in these publications so that they will hopefully show us to someone else. So why are you working so hard to have a middleman? Just go straight to the fans, pay for a cheap Facebook ad and get seen by, 500,000 people for $100.
Right. And when your music is when you're at the level where it's quality and stuff, like these things will start coming to you a little bit more. It won't be like so much beating your head against the wall, just trying to find some out. So also keep that, in mind as well.
Someone said, I told my singer, ugh, when you leave, it's gonna kill me. I like that. I like that. You might not be referencing my song, but I like that. Okay, that's enough. What do you got for us in today in music and business news?
That's great. All right, so this one I have a couple things. Chris Brown's former housekeeper demands $1 million over vicious dog attack. Singer accused of blowing off the lawsuit. Now, this has been something that's been kind of going on for a while, but this is the update. Chris Brown's former employee is accusing the singer of blowing off her lawsuit over an alleged vicious dog attack that went down at his home. According to court documents obtained by Radar, Patricia Avila, who cleaned the pop star's Tarzana mansion with her sister, believes she's entitled to a 1 million default judgment. Avea says she properly served Brown with notice of the lawsuit, but he hasn't bothered to show up in court. The breakdown of her $1 million request for the emotional distress she suffered is 1 million for the emotional distress she suffered, 1,000 for medical expenses, 24,000 in loss of earnings, and an unknown amount for future loss of earnings.
All
And
right,
her
so real quick, let's go through two things that you just mentioned. Number one,
sure,
as far as what happened, so the housekeeper filed a lawsuit, and I think there were two dogs, if I remember correctly. There were two dogs that were in the house, and she said they were usually kept apart, and she didn't really have a problem. And I think she was making like $600 a day. So, I'm sure this was a great job for her, but she goes, at some point, one of the dogs got out and started attacking her. And so, I don't know if you're at the part, but, maybe just kind of explain, if you remember, where did the dog bite her? Are we talking about like a little nip on the arm, or?
Yeah, no, let me pull that up, because that actually, I got that kind of stuff from another place. Oops. Again, sorry, we're trying a whole new.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, what you're gonna see, because we're gonna bounce between two different articles, because one was from a couple of months ago, which I thought gave a little bit more description of what had happened, versus kind of today what the lawsuit's about, what happened, and we'll give you an update there. But so then this one was in Fox News.
This was from a Fox News article, and the attorney for the client said that her complaint that the housekeeper was putting garbage in a trash when a very large brown dog comes out of nowhere and visually, brutally mauls, bites, and attacks. The dog begins savagely biting her face, her arms, and other parts of her person and body, literally tearing out and ripping off large chunks of her skin from her face and her arms. So
yeah, so something I thought was interesting, because you had said she was seeking $1 million in emotional distress damages that could come from many things. She has remained anonymous through this process, so of course, to the extent that we can look up and maybe see pictures.
Until now.
Well, yeah, I wasn't able to see any pictures, but to the extent of the damage, anything when it comes to your face, anyone's usually going to be pretty sensitive about that. So a part of the emotional distress might be, it sounds like she had to take work off for many, many weeks. But then also, I don't know what kind of scarring she's left with. I read that she had to go through multiple surgeries, which for me, I guess, didn't quite add up. And my only kind of skepticism is if she's only seeking $1,000 in medical bills. If she had multiple surgeries, wouldn't it be more than that? But I don't know. I haven't actually seen that. But look, if a dog attacked me and ripped into my face, I'd be pretty upset about it too.
And in the original story, it said the occupants included the defendant Brown, his security guards, or security team members. As she lay there bleeding profusely, barely able to see as blood was covering her eyes, face, and body, she observes defendant Brown approach her, standing over her as he is speaking on his cell phone, the complaint described. And then Chris Brown reportedly ordered his security team to dispose of the dog, and it was euthanized by Humboldt County authorities per the housekeeper's statement. So he was apparently trying to get rid of the evidence of it. Now, this story kind of hits home for me because, before I kind of, went into, music full time, I used to work as a pool tech and, would clean and service swimming pools and stuff. And there'd be a lot of times where there was just crazy vicious dogs that were barely just kept in by a fence that would be, trying to break through fences. There were times where I had been actually bit on the leg by a dog. And just like, there's been times where I literally have been fearful because, some dogs can be very aggressive and they don't want people in their backyards. They don't want people in their house. They're very protective, especially if they're security dogs. And I think it's definitely the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that their animals are stowed to the level of whatever employee, guest, stranger, whoever is in the house. Because I got to tell you, if some of the dogs that I had been, working alongside had actually gotten through and really done some damage to me, and if one of them was Chris Brown should have known better. I'm coming after him. Like, there's no way.
What about? I think you had told me one time you had a dog bite on your hand, and it burned.
Oh my God!
For so long.
that was a more of a friendly situation, as that was my friend's animal whom I loved, and I didn't want to, it was an accident. But yeah, no, I had been, I was feeding a dog a treat, and my hand got bit. I've never felt a burning in my life as was in, from this dog bite that happened. And then even months later, after it healed, was healing up, I found there was like a little speck in there, and I dug out, and there was a piece of the cookie that he
Oh,
had.
jeez.
Like that was just sitting in there. So I mean, obviously I'm fine and stuff. I also have friends that have been, bit by dogs. But the point is, that's just carelessness to me, and that could be easily avoided.
Well, and
That
let's talk about that though, because in the article it was saying that the dog broke through and got through the door. Okay, so it wasn't just let out; it was just kind of.
but that can
So
mean
in
anything.
that carelessness analysis, what I'm going to say is, I actually have a case right now, and I don't take a lot of these cases. I do obviously mostly entertainment law, but every once in a while, a client will bring me something that's just needs to be handled. So, and it was a case in regards to a dog bite, but it was a dog bite of another dog that killed the dog. And the dog was a pit bull. Unfortunately, I don't want to, stereotype or anything, but it was a pit bull. It was more aggressive, specific to this dog, and it burst through the gate. And so a lot of the analysis comes down to, does the owner have a responsibility to ensure that the dog is constrained? And the answer for our state is yes. You have an absolute duty, and that's how you get to that negligence factor, because the owner's nowhere to be found. Now, in this complaint, we're hearing that Chris Brown was allegedly in the house, he's on his phone, and, obviously they're not really describing a sympathetic reaction upon coming upon someone that had just been attacked by your dog, but,
Right.
we'll hear his side
I would
if
be
he
I would be
responds.
I would be mortified, and I would feel, I can't even imagine how guilty and whatever. And I would just want to do, if I was Chris Brown, I would just want to do whatever I could to make it right, because I can't even imagine, like, oh my gosh. But it's absolutely their fault. He was aware of, the aggressiveness of the dog. If it's breaking through a door, like that's not the first time that he's gotten through a barrier, has whatever. And if you can hear it's going on, then secure the dog. I don't know. That's your responsibility. You have me here to clean your house, to take care of your things. I need to move about freely. I need to feel safe when I do it. Um, so yeah, I mean, seems pretty cut and dry to me, but we'll see.
Well, and so what's going to happen from here, because we had just said in the beginning of the segment that we have a default judgment situation. That means that once someone files a complaint, if the other side doesn't respond and give an answer or motion to dismiss or any kind of filing to actually say, hey, I'm going to defend myself,
Mm.
then you get what's called default judgment. Now, there's usually a little period of time once you file for default judgment where the other side can still wake up and get into the case and they'll be able to answer. But if you get default judgment, then you go in front of the judge and you say, hey, me as the person complaining, this is all the evidence that I have. And so, in cases that I've had default judgment, I'll just say, this is what the contract said, for example, this is what we're claiming, we want $500,000. And the judge will say, okay, and stamp it. So it's not good to not respond, especially if someone has a claim for $1 million plus, which she may or may not be entitled to. And if he doesn't do anything or one of his attorneys doesn't respond, then she'll get that default judgment. For how much money, that's up to the judge.
Right. It's interesting. It's interesting. But it is pretty suspicious that he just went and just euthanized the dog. I don't even know if, like, there's a comment in there about, would that be considered, tampering with evidence, and that's what the complaint is kind of, suggesting as well. So I don't know, but I do know that it's terrible. I can't even imagine, like, the fear, and then there's a fear coming of, like, afterwards, like being afraid of dogs. You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, are you gonna be, my best friend has been bitten by many dogs. He had a lot of different dogs. He wasn't good with dogs. But it took him many years to get over that fear of just even being around a dog. And I mean,
Yeah,
that's
no, and that goes into the emotional
terrible.
distress analysis for sure. But I think the last point that I'll make is just about, you had said disposing of the evidence, right?
Yeah.
That plays into how we value animals and, different situations, different outcomes. But specifically when it comes to dogs, under most states' law, they're property, right? They're not recognized the way that people are, right? So, like in, for example, the case that I was talking about, where we have a dog attack, that then resulted in the loss of another dog. It was, what's the valuation of the dog? And so, what is that, $50? Which is not the valuation. These dogs are our family half of the time.
No, I mean we literally have this conversation all the time. So I mean, especially when our dog Artie, may he rest in peace. Before, when he was younger, he was also attacked by a dog, and we went through that whole just the dog got loose. Another one of these instances where the dog got loose, wasn't on a leash, and almost really uh took out my dog. And there was a situation there. So I don't know, just to dog owners, just keep them, the temperament of your animal, and it's not the dog's fault that the dog was just trying to protect the house. But at the same point, it's your responsibility to secure that dog.
Restrain. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to restrain your animals. All right, guys. So we're going to say adios to that Orko. Now I'm going to give you one more. Bye, that Orko. I'm going to give you one more reminder. I mentioned it at the beginning of the live stream that I got something coming for you record label owners, and even for my artists who just want to start a record label for themselves. I have a full-length course if you want to check that out on topmusicattorney.com. But this is going to be a free crash course, which is giving you a full-length overview. It's a video course of basically what you need to know, what you need to avoid. We're going to get into deep dive stuff, like talking about the artist agreement, because every record label, it's the most important agreement that you will ever have. So I'm very excited about this, because you know me, as soon as I can have something that just brings you guys a ton of value, I'm super stoked. So we're going to roll that out real soon. But we're going to get out of here. If you haven't already, come say hi. All the social media for Redhead Attorney is just at Redhead Attorney. Find me at Miss Krystle Live. And of course, that Orko at that Orko. I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm Top Music Attorney, Miss Krystle. Bye.